Hello everybody, welcome back to the new session. Just 1 second, let me check if I'm live. Okay, perfect. So let's get started. Hi everybody, this is lesson number 17. Good evening everyone. So this is lesson number 17, exception handling. We are going to understand exception handling concept in Java. So we have already covered many of the things already in Java. If you have not seen the earlier sessions, please go ahead and watch it. Before that, if you guys are new, I just want to say that this is CodeBeyond channel. We are providing different content. Different educators are actually teaching different programming languages on different domains very clearly with examples and with practical examples as well, right? So all of this thing is happening in this particular channel. I have also come up with a front-end playlist. If you have not seen that, please go ahead and watch it. If you want to become a front-end developer, you can see that particular playlist, watch those videos and upskill yourself with HTML, CSS, JavaScript and Bootstrap. Once you do that, you can go ahead and give the interviews. You can also learn React.js. That also sessions are there in the channel itself, right? Now I have come up with complete Java tutorial. As you can see, this is the one where I am teaching a complete Java tutorial from scratch, from core Java to advanced Java, everything. So we have already covered many of the topics. We have already covered 50% of it, mostly OOPS concept and all of the things. Right now we are in our next topic, which is exception handling. And this session will be a long one because we have a lot to cover in this particular session. So maybe till 10 p.m. this particular session will go on, right? So if you have any particular work, you can do it. You can watch this video again whenever you're free. This video will be there in your playlist as well. But if you are not free, if suppose you want to watch this live session, then please join with me and let's crack this together, right? If you guys are new and you do not know what is happening and about me, then let me just introduce myself. My name is Ritwik Raj and I'm a corporate trainer. I've also worked as a subject matter expert in most of the tech companies. And I have trained graduates and corporate employees from myself and Capgemini. I have trained more than 30 students till now. It is increasing day by day. Online, I have done million learners are there for me. And the subjects which I take is mostly in front development, backend languages, database, interview preparations, tips and tricks on how to crack interviews, those all things, right? You can also use my code, which is RIT10, to get a free level sample test paper. If you do not know about Relevel, don't worry. Soon I'm going to tell you about that. But if you do know about Relevel, you must be knowing that you have to give an actual test. And to have an understanding of what kind of questions will come in that actual test, this sample paper will help you. And you'll get this sample paper by using my code, which is RIT10. Hi Manish, good evening. Perfect. So let's get started with our Relevel. What is Relevel? And let's understand what is happening here. So basically, Relevel is a product by Unacademy. What is the reason behind coming of this particular Relevel product? It's nothing but many times candidate miss out on great opportunities because the candidate is having a different degree, right? And they want to jump into IT sector. They want to jump into IT jobs. They have the skill, they have the talent, they have done some projects as well, but their resumes are getting rejected because company wants people from B.Tech or B graduate. But that doesn't make any sense because anybody who is having the skill should be at least called for an interview, right? No matter what. Now, the second problem is that many of the engineering graduates are also facing this problem because of tier 3 college. If they're from tier 3 college, nobody is calling them or nobody is actually rejecting their resumes, right? They're actually rejecting their resumes. So this is what is the problem which is happening in India right now, and that's why Relevel came into the picture. So it is India's first selling platform by Unacademy, which is helping job seekers find their dream jobs. You can get a job based on your skill and talent, and no other questions will be asked to you. The benefits of participating in the Relevel test is basically you can attempt the test for free. This will be of 1,000 marks. You have to score above 700 marks. If you do that, you will be eligible for a profile. The profile, we will share it with all our client companies which have 1,000 plus job positions across business development, backend development and front end development. So you can go ahead and try this out. With Relevel, you are in a unique position to invite interest from companies instead of hunting for opportunities on your own. Correct? Now, how you can register on Relevel is very, very easy. So what you have to do is you have to just click on the link which is given in the description of this video. You can click on that. Once you do that, you will be able to get this page. You have to put down a mobile number and an OTP. Once you do that, you have to choose which particular test you want to give. Suppose if skill is on front-end development, choose that. And once you do that, you can book a slot when you want to give the Relevel test. So slots are limited, so I suggest you to book it fast. Once you do that, you have to fill in the details for the admit card. You can use my promo code and write it here and click on apply, click on create account. Your account will be created, right? Do not miss on putting the RIT 10 code coupon, because once you don't do that, your account will not be having the sample paper. So you need to make sure that you're using the coupon code so that you get the sample paper also. Once you get the sample paper, download this. You'll be able to analyze and have a understanding of what kind of questions or what pattern or how easy or difficult the actual test will be, right? So it'll be really helpful for you. Go ahead and register for Relevel right away. If you've already done it, then all the best for the exam. If you have not done it, please go ahead and do it. If you think that the 1000 marks scoring 700 is too much tough for me, you don't have those skills, what you can do is you can check out CodeBeyond channel. You can see what all sessions are going on, which educator is teaching which topic at what time. Upskill yourself. Once you are ready, then you can come back and register for Relevel, right? Also, you can join the Telegram channel. The link is given in the description, the video description. You can join the Telegram channel, because in Telegram channel, we are always providing you the updates and notifications when a particular educator is coming live, at what time, with what topic. Also, please do subscribe the CodeBeyond channel and hit the notification bell so that more and more number of people will get to know about this. Also, please do like and share so that, more and more number of people will get to know about this free content. So let's get started with the exception handling. Hi Dhanu, good evening. Where are my other students? Why they have not joined? Okay, so let's get started with this. We are going to understand exception handling, right? And to understand this, you need to have a very good knowledge about what is an exception, correct? So in Java, normally in every OOPS concept nowadays, whatever language is coming up, we have exception handling in that. Now, what is it? What is the meaning of this? Let's try to understand. So we will be starting with only exception handling. We are not talking about any other OOPS concept or anything else. In this 2 hour session, we are going to only talk about exception handling, because there are a lot of things which is there in exception handling which you do not know. People do get confused when they write a program on exception handling. They do just write the first basic programs, and then later on, when it comes to throws and other things, try catch, they actually get confused. So I'm going to make it similar. I'm going to make it very, very easy for you. Whatever is written here, do not get into that. I am going to explain you what is it, but do not read the paragraph right away. Firstly, I'm just going to give you one example, a real world example, so that you can understand what is actually a exception handling. Is it great? I think in all my PPT, it's written encapsulation. One second, guys. One second, everyone. Okay, so the thing is, my keyboard is not working. Very nice. What has happened to this? Okay, no problem. Let's get started. I think this keyboard is working. Perfect. Uh, do not get into this heading. Okay, it's exceptional handling, nothing else. This just the heading is not changed, so do not have a look at that. It's exception handling, not encapsulation. Okay, it's basically exception handling. One second, let's change that itself. I don't know how this happened, and my keyboard is also not working. Just one second, guys. I think many of you will join as well till the time I'm doing this. So let's wait for some time so that everybody can join. And meanwhile, I can do this. If I don't do it, you guys will get confused. So just making sure everything is fine. Let's close it. Okay, fine. Hi, Tanuj. Okay, fine. Let's get started, right? So let's talk about exception handling. Now, when you're talking about exception handling, right, you can understand the name. Again, Java, when I say that, whenever I'm teaching Java, I say that the name itself is having a meaning, and from the meaning itself, you can understand what is happening in that particular topic. Encapsulation भी मैंने वैसे ही करवाया. I have done inheritance does the same like that, and also some other topics as well, where I was first focusing into the name and then the meaning of it, right? So when you talk about exception handling, exception means something which should not occur, but it has occurred, right? Some kind of error, correct? Handling means that you handle that particular exception. That means you handle that particular error, whatever happened, right? But please have a look at it and please understand that error and exception is not similar. Error and exception is not same in Java. Okay. So let's try to understand it with a story, right? So let's talk about this story. Let's say that you have a cycle and you're just walking. I mean, you're riding your cycle and you're going to your destination, which is your home, right? Now, so suppose that this is your home and this is your cycle in which you are riding. You're riding, and then in middle of your location from the journey, whatever the distance you are covering, in the middle of that particular distance, something happened. Okay, let's say that you have hit a particular animal, or your something happened and you just fell down. Okay, आप गिर गए हो वहीं पे और आपको चोट लग गया. लेट्स से आपको चोट लग गया. सो कुछ हुआ and then you fell down. Now once you fell down, you got a wound. That means आपको चोट लगा है and you got a wound, and it's not a very simple wound, it's a big wound. So now the thing is, you cannot again stand up and cover the half of the distance to reach your home. You cannot do that because that wound is big and maybe it's bleeding, so you cannot actually move ahead, correct? So what you will do, you'll sit there for some time, right? Because you cannot move, right? Maybe you will wait for somebody to come and help you, right? So again, I'm trying to explain you are in a cycle, you are in your bicycle or motorcycle or anything, and then you're moving to your destination, which is your home. But in between, in middle of the road, in middle of that particular distance which you're covering, something happened, some accident or something, and then you fell down and you got hurt, you got a big wound, and basically you cannot move further to reach to your home, and you're just lying down in that particular place, or just sitting there because you cannot stand up. So you are waiting for anybody to come back, right? So what is happening here is that one process was happening, correct? You are moving from your one source to your destination, but in between something happened, right? That is what is called as exception. Some exception happened, something happened there, right? Now because of that exception, you are not being able to cover the half of the distance till your home. You are not being able to do that, right? आप वो जो आधा डिस्टेंस है जो आपको जाना है घर तक, वो आप कवर नहीं कर पा रहे उसके चलते, correct? Same thing happens in your exception also. So suppose that this is the code, right? I've written this code, I've written this main method, I've written this 5 lines. One is printing statement 1, second one is statement 2, third one is 10 by 0, and fourth one is statement 4, and fifth one is statement 5, करेक्ट? तो ये पांचों स्टेटमेंट है, करेक्ट? अब बेसिकली अगर आप ये पर्टिकुलर प्रोग्राम को चलाओगे तो क्या होगा, प्रिंट होगा सारे स्टेटमेंट, पहले स्टेटमेंट 1 प्रिंट होगा, फिर स्टेटमेंट 2 प्रिंट होगा, लेकिन बीच रास्ते पे कुछ एक्सेप्शन हो गया है. क्या एक्सेप्शन हुआ है? 10 by 0. 10 by 0 इज इन मैथमेटिक्स इट्स इन्फिनिटी, करेक्ट। 10/0 का कोई वैल्यू नहीं होता, वो इन्फिनिटी होता है। अब जेवीएम को इन्फिनिटी के बारे में नहीं पता, जेवीएम डजंट नो व्हाट इज इन्फिनिटी, राइट। सो इट्स एन एबनॉर्मल कंडीशन, it is called as an abnormal condition. Something happened here, and because of this, this execution is not going to print statement 4 and statement 5. That means यहाँ पे कुछ exception हुआ, and because of that these two lines are facing problem. जैसे आप वो आधा दूरी कंप्लीट नहीं कर पा रहे हो क्योंकि आपको चोट लग गया, आप बैठ गए हो, तो सिमिलरली यू आर नॉट बीइंग एबल टू कवर दैट डिस्टेंस, राइट, द डिस्टेंस फ्रॉम योर एक्सीडेंट प्लेस till your destination, that's your home, right? You're not being able to cover that because you are wounded. So here also these two lines are not getting executed. तो ये एक problem है, this is a problem because statement 1 and statement 2 is getting printed, statement 4 and statement 5 is not getting printed. तो ये दोनों के साथ तो जाती हुआ ना, this is like it will say that hey, why I am not getting printed, statement 3 is having problem, I am not having a problem, you can print me, right? So this is something which Java developers were finding it difficult to explain. So what they did, they came up with the decision of handling this thing. Okay, they wanted to handle this thing. Now what is handling? Please understand. तो हैंडलिंग का मतलब क्या होता है? अब मान लो आप वहाँ उस सिचुएशन में बैठे हुए हो, यू आर वुंडेड, यू हैव अ बिग वुंड देयर, सो व्हाट यू विल डू? मे बी यू विल टेक योर फोन आउट एंड यू विल कॉल योर फ्रेंड्स, यू विल से दैट हे आई एम हियर, कैन यू प्लीज come and help me out. So your friends will bring first aid box, maybe they will bandage your wound, right, and then they will take you to your home, right? Or maybe when you are bandaged you are now fine, correct? Now bleeding has stopped, so now you can walk further, you can go ahead and reach your home, correct? You can do that now. So what they have done, they have just handled your situation so that you can complete that distance and can reach home, right? Now in this case what is happening, when you are handled then you are covering that distance. That means अगर मैं इस लाइन को हैंडल कर दूं, किसी तरीके से इसमें कहीं बैंडेज लगा दूं, तो स्टेटमेंट 4 एंड स्टेटमेंट 5 कैन गेट एग्जीक्यूटेड, इट कैन गेट एग्जीक्यूटेड, राइट? So same thing we are doing, we will handle this exception, we will try to handle this exception, and this particular theorem is called as exception handling. This particular logic is called as exception handling. So whenever this kind of exception comes in, we need to handle that exception so that आगे का लाइन प्रोसेस हो सके, आगे का लाइन स्टॉप नहीं होना चाहिए, ठीक है? फाइन. सो दिस इज व्हाट हैपेंस इन योर एक्सेप्शन हैंडलिंग. बट इसके आगे भी बहुत है, कैसे हैंडल करना है. डू वी एक्चुअली टाई अ बैंडेज अराउंड दिस पर्टिकुलर लाइन? नो, राइट, वी वोंट टाई अ बैंडेज, करेक्ट? वी कैन नॉट डू दैट, इट्स नॉट पॉसिबल. सो व्हाट डू वी डू हियर? व्हाट डू वी डू टू बैंडेज इट, और हाउ कैन वी हैंडल इट? व्हाट आर द डिफरेंट ब्लॉक्स दैट वी यूज हियर? सो ऑल ऑफ दोज थिंग्स वी विल ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड हियर, ठीक है? ये एग्जाम्पल हमेशा ध्यान में रखना जो मैंने अभी आपको बताया, क्योंकि ये बार बार इस पर्टिकुलर सेशन में आते रहेगा. फाइन. सो let's have a look at this first. So an exception is an event or an abnormal condition in a program occurring during the execution of a program that leads to disruption of normal flow of program instructions. ठीक है, ये है प्रॉपर डेफिनेशन. यू कैन फ्रेम इट इन योर ओन वे हाउ यू वांट टू डू इट. आप अपने इंग्लिश, नॉर्मल इंग्लिश वे में आप इसको एक्सप्लेन कर सकते हो, बट दिस इज अ परफेक्ट एग्जाम्पल ऑफ perfect definition of exception handling. So an exception is an event or an abnormal condition in a program during execution of a program that leads to disruption of the normal flow of program instructions. मतलब आगे के कोड एग्जीक्यूट नहीं हो पा रहे, ये डिसरप्ट हो जा रहा है. An exception can occur for different reasons. When the user enters invalid data, that means suppose I am asking the user for a integer data, but user is putting a string or a character. So at that time exception will happen. A file that needs to be opened cannot be found. So this is a file handling concept. I have not taught you a file handling concept, but basically वहाँ पे क्या होता है, that you can write a program and आपके particular system में कोई भी ऐसा कोई फाइल है जो आप ओपन करना चाहते हो, तो वो प्रोग्राम के यूज से ही ओपन हो जाएगा. That means within that program you will write a command to open that particular file and it will open it. But suppose अगर वो फाइल है ही नहीं, तो if that particular file which you are mentioning in your program is not there in your system, then how it will open it, right? So that's an exception. A network connection has been lost in the middle of communication. Suppose you are doing a get post with the server, right? Get post in the sense आप कुछ चीजें, आप कुछ डेटा भेजना चाहते हो सर्वर में. सर्वर में तभी जाएगा ना जब इंटरनेट होगा या आपका कनेक्शन होगा इंटरनेट से. सपोज अगर बीच में ही आपका वाईफाई बंद हो गया या इंटरनेट लॉस्ट हो गया, तो ऑब्वियसली बीच रास्ते में ही वो डेटा लॉस्ट हो जाएगा या फिर वो डेटा जा ही नहीं पाएगा सर्वर तक. सो दीज आर नथिंग बट योर एक्सेप्शन. JVM हैज रन आउट ऑफ मेमोरी, ये भी कभी कभी हो सकता है. So these are nothing but exception. We'll try to see how many types of exceptions are there. How can we handle that? सब कुछ करेंगे. But now please tell me, अगर वो छोटा सा example जो accident वाला था, can you relate that with it or not? You can relate it. ठीक है. So यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है? Statement 1 is getting printed, statement 2 is getting printed, and in the third line, it is just printing exception in thread main java.lang.arithmetic exception by 0 at test.main. Have I printed this thing in here? No, right? I was तो expecting infinity, but infinity JVM को समझ नहीं आता, तो उसने क्या किया? उसने एक एरर मैसेज थ्रो कर दिया इस तरीके का. उसने एक एरर मैसेज ये थ्रो किया कि आपके इस लाइन में एक्सेप्शन है, एंड दिस एक्सेप्शन इज कॉल्ड एज अर्थमेटिक एक्सेप्शन बिकॉज आई डू नॉट नो व्हाट इज डिवीजन बाय जीरो. So JVM is saying that I do not know what is division by 0. You need to handle this. Then only I'll be able to execute statement 4 and statement 5. Fine. So this is what is happening in your code right now. So let's have a look at this particular thing. So you can see here public class test void main statement 1 statement 2. Now you can see I have handled it. Okay, so how can I handle it? I'm using a try and a catch block. You can see I'm using a try block and a catch block to handle this particular statement. Now please understand, जब हम लोग अपने बिग वुंड जो था उसको हैंडल कैसे कर रहे थे, उसको हम लोग सिर्फ एक बैंडेज बांध दे रहे थे, या फिर वी आर अप्लाइंग सम क्रीम और something else. We are just doing first aid so that the bleeding can stop and you can walk for that time. At least for that particular time, you can walk. Correct? So we did some bandage there. Now please understand that that bandage will not actually correct your wound, right? It will not make it invisible or disappear, right? Wound will be there. घर जाओगे आप तो आप उस wound को bandage को खोलोगे, आप देखोगे कि अभी भी wound है वहां पे, right? It's not clearly corrected, or we can't say that it is clearly corrected just the way it was, right? Just like कि वहां पे कुछ था ही नहीं. We have not done like that, right? We have just handled it. So please understand कि error और exception में क्या difference होता है. Error can be corrected. Exceptions can't be corrected. It can be only handled. So error is something like if I'm not giving a semicolon here, right? अगर मैंने यहाँ प्रोग्राम पे सेमीकोलन नहीं दिया है तो एरर आता है, एंड देन व्हाट डू वी डू? वी पुट अ सेमीकोलन, तो वो पूरा करेक्ट हो जाता है, वो पूरा करेक्ट हो जाता है, राइट? सो इन सच एग्जांपल्स व्हाट वी कैन गिव इज वी कैन जस्ट ट्राई टू से दैट व्हेन यू डू अ पर्टिकुलर when you go to a hospital and you do an injection, right? So what happens at that time? Injection से कुछ होता है क्या? नहीं ना. So when they pull the injection out of your body, nothing happens. No bleeding, nothing, right? So what happens at that time? Basically, they have corrected whatever was there, right? So that is the correctness. Or maybe if you have a cut, a very small cut, the next day that cut will not be there. Because it's a very small thing and it will get corrected automatically. So those are errors, but exceptions are which is only handled. It's not properly corrected. So when I'm saying 10 by 0, if I'm saying कि 10 by 0 is just getting handled, that means it won't give me infinity value. ये मुझे infinity value नहीं देगा, ये मुझे कुछ और देगा, कुछ और आउटपुट देगा, and then it will print the statement 4 and statement 5. करेक्टनेस तब होता जब ये 10 by 0 मुझे infinity value दे देता. Then I would have said कि this particular thing has been corrected. But I don't want to correct it. I want to just handle it. So I'm just handling, okay? Please try to understand this particular thing of difference between error and exception. Okay? So I hope you got it. I'm not reading the comment right now because I'm in a flow. So let's complete this. थोड़ा सा topic जब इधर उधर होगा, then I'll read the comments, okay? First flow है, तो let's समझते हैं कि actually में होता क्या है इधर, right? So statement 1 is getting printed, statement 2 is getting printed. Now we have written some other things. I don't know what is it, right? So let's try to understand it in a better way. So basically, if you think that when you're writing a program, when you're writing a logic, if you think that this particular line can throw an exception. If you think that this particular line is not giving me an error, but I think that this particular thing will give me an exception, then you put that particular thing inside a try block. So can you see a try block here? So block means curly, open curly bracket, close curly bracket. So there's an open curly bracket, close curly bracket. So we put this particular line, which I think that will throw an exception. I put this inside a try block. Okay? And then we come to catch block. So try block में क्या होता है? We only write that particular statement which we think may or may not be throwing exception. May or may not be. Because I never know कि this will throw exception or not. I'm just assuming that maybe this will throw an exception, correct? So that particular kind of statements will be coming inside try. What is catch? Catch block is used to handle the exception. So basically, catch is having one parameter. So let's try to understand what is this parameter. Depending on the type of exception, you have to write that type of exception here. So suppose 10 by 0 is an arithmetic exception. So we write this here. Okay. If suppose there's an exception and you do not know what is the type of that exception, then you can write only exception here. Okay. But suppose you know that what kind of exception is it, then you can directly write that name of the exception. And then you have to give an object here. It can be anything. It can be E, it can be F, it can be G, anything, but just create an object there. What this object will do, this object will basically go to this arithmetic exception class and will say that maybe the user is thinking that this line will throw an exception, so I should throw a message to it. So this particular object will go inside this arithmetic exception class. Why am I saying class? Because it's A, right? So it'll go inside this class and it will print a message for you. That's what I'm printing here. See, E I'm printing. So E means it will print a message for me directly. So you can see what is happening. It is printing java.lang.arithmetic exception divided by 0. The main point to notice here is that statement 4 and statement 5 is also getting executed, which was not happening here when we did not bandage the exception. We did not bandage the exception. So here we are not getting the statement 4 and statement 5. We are just getting the error. Yes or no? But when we handled it, then we are getting the message also and the printing of statement 4 and statement 5 as well. Right? So I hope this much is clear. Just have a look at this. This is not finished yet. There is a lot of things which we need to understand here. So for now, just have a look at it so that you can understand whether you have understood the concept or not, the basic concept. Meanwhile, I'll just do something and just in 2 minutes, I'll start the again the session I'll start. Okay. Just 1 second. If you have any doubts, please do let me know. Any doubts? Okay, Bhaiya cover all in depth and interview purpose that tell all in interview. Sashank, too many things I have covered in this particular sessions. If you look above, like the lesson 15 till from lesson 1 to lesson 15, if you have not seen, please go ahead and watch it, because in that you can find everything, like all the interview questions, also some of the tips and tricks I've also shared in between the sessions. So if you have watched all my sessions, you will be able to analyze कि जावा में क्या पूछा जाता है mostly. ठीक है, I hope this makes sense. Just 1 second. Okay, cool. So let's get started now. So we have understood this particular example. Let's try to understand कि actually exception आया कहाँ से, how is that come from, where it has come, all these things we'll try to understand. So basically exception and error, there are two things. It comes from throwable. Okay, throwable is an interface. So this is also one of the question. That's not a problem, Ankita. Please go ahead and watch it from starting. Uh, you can ask any doubt anytime. There is no problem. But please watch it from starting because I've taken a very good example. So I want you to please go back and have a look at that example and then come back here. You will understand. So error and exception are two things which has an interface which is throwable. So throwable is basically an interface. Please try to understand. And this interface is the father of two things, exception and error. Okay. This question will be asked in your interviews as well. Basically, they will directly ask you key whether what is the father of, or you can say exception class has been inherited from which particular interface, or error class has been inherited from which particular interface. So you have to say throwable. This was asked to me in one of my interviews and I was not knowing at that time, but this is what it is. Also, errors are non-recoverable. Programs will be terminated abnormally. Okay, this is what is an error. But in exceptions are recoverable. By using try catch block, we can handle exception. There are two kinds of exception: checked and unchecked. Checked exception are checked by a compiler itself, except runtime exception and its subclass. So what is checked and unchecked? Let's try to understand. See, there are some of the exceptions which can be handled at the compile time itself. That means when you're compiling the program, when the .java file is getting converted into .class, in that journey itself, exception can be caught. So that's what is checked exceptions. And unchecked exceptions are those exceptions which cannot be checked by a compiler, or it cannot be checked in the compile time. It will be checked only in the runtime. Okay? So these are actually covered in a runtime. So when you're running your program, then only you can find these exceptions directly in your result. Okay, so these are the two exceptions. Let's try to understand some concepts and some practical knowledge of exception handling, and then we'll try to move into throws and other stuffs. Okay. We will come back to this later on because this is a very different topic. We'll come to this later on. Right now, checked exception is basically something like, let's say, class not found exception, SQL exception, IO exception. There are so many exceptions: input output exception, SQL exception, and one more, class not found exception. Those are checked exceptions. Unchecked exceptions are basically arithmetic exception, null pointer exception, number format exception, index out of bound exception. So index out of bound exception means when you have an array and suppose that your array is of 5 size, but you are giving the sixth value to that array. But array is of only 5 size, right? There's no sixth location there. There's no sixth memory location there. Then where you will put that sixth value? So that's what is called as array index out of bound exception. This is also called as number format. That means whether the format is correct or not, number format is correct or not. Null pointer is basically whenever you pass a null value. Those are different kinds of exceptions. We'll try to run some programs. We'll try to see how these programs work. Okay, some programs will do so that you can understand at least how these things are happening. So we'll start from very basic ones and then we'll slowly move into the harder ones. Okay, my keyboard is not working. God, why is it not working? 1 second, guys. It's not working. आइडेंटिफाई कैसे करते हैं रन टाइम है या कंपाइल टाइम एक्सेप्शन है तनुज वी नीड टू रिमेंबर दैट देयर इज अ लिस्ट ऑफ कंपाइल टाइम देयर इज अ लिस्ट ऑफ चेक्ड एक्सेप्शंस देयर इज अ लिस्ट ऑफ unchecked exceptions so you need to remember that. One second guys, I'll just remove my keyboard. I don't think it's working. I don't know what happened. Okay, so you can see the code. You can just try to see what is happening here. I've already explained you this code, so I don't think there's any problem in this. I hope you can understand what is happening here. Fine. So basically we have one particular statement which is we think that it may or may not be throwing an exception. So we have just written that, and then it is getting handled by the catch exception, you can see here, and we are just printing that. So let's try to run this and let's try to see what is happening. So you can see here, this is going to print me a message. You can see java.lang.arithmetic exception divide by 0, and then the rest of the code is also getting printed. So we are printing the rest of the code as well. This is getting printed. This is the main thing, right? Because if you do not use try and catch, if you just write in data equal to 100 by 0 and then system.println, it's going to give you the error, right? The statement will give you error and this code will not get executed. So we want this code to get executed. That's why we did the exception handling, and this is how you did the code. Okay, now so let's try to see a different kind of exceptions, the type of exceptions which I've told you, and let's try to understand how that happens. Okay, so basically the first kind of exception is an arithmetic exception, which I've already explained you. So in here, basically what happens, you are dividing something by 0. So when you do that, that's an arithmetic exception, right? So this is basically an arithmetic exception. Guys, my keyboard is not working, so I won't be able to type anything. I'll just type the code and you have to understand, and I'll just tell the name of the exception and you have to understand what kind of is it. So this is an arithmetic exception. Let's try to understand what is a null pointer exception. So basically if you have a string, let's say string s equal to null, suppose if this is the thing. Now in this case, what's going to happen? If you are printing s, right? If you're printing s value, it's going to throw an exception. It's going to throw a null pointer exception because the value is null. You cannot do that. Okay. The another one is a number format exception. So basically if you are writing a string, let's say I'm writing here string s equal to some random string. Okay. Now, if suppose I am changing this particular thing, this is a different program. If suppose I'm writing here int I, and then I am saying integer dot parseInt. ParseInt, if you know that, you must be knowing that parseInt is basically which actually changes the format of your string to integer, anything to integer basically. So it's a typecasting which I'm doing here, but with the use of method. So I'm using a parseInt method to change my string into an integer. So suppose if I write here just s, so this will also throw an exception. This will throw an exception of number format exception because the string which you're converting into an s, it is having not only digits, but it is having a letter. So it cannot be converted into an integer. So this is a number format exception, right? Array index out of bound, I've already told you, this is basically a, suppose if you have an array, if you have the size of the array as 5, right? And you're giving the values here, which is 6 values, right? If you're giving here 6 values, let's say, I'm finding it difficult to type, but still let's manage in this way only. If you're doing in this manner, you can see 5 is what? 5 memory blocks, but you have here 6 digit as well, right? So basically your memory block is what? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So basically your your one digit is extra here. So this is what is array index out of bound. Okay, fine. So we will slowly see different topics because there are too many things which we need to understand. So first of all, we'll try to see a try catch block example. We'll try to see different kind of codes and understand how that happens. So the first code is, let me find a easy one and then a hard one, so that at least you can understand what is happening here. So in this example, you can see what we are doing. We have a main method, we are writing try, and then int data equal to 50 by 0, and then we are just printing this statement. Again, please understand here, this is a different example. This is not the same because the println statement is also inside the try code, right? So in this example, we also kept the code in a try block that will not throw an exception. If this particular code will not throw an exception, it's totally fine. We can do this. Okay, so let's have a look at this particular example. If suppose I'm writing here main, I'm just going to run this, you can see what is going to happen. So I'm getting java.lang.arithmetic exception by 0, right? Why am I getting this? Because you can see here it is printing, it is basically handling, right? So if this is an exception, if exception occurs, the remaining statement will not execute. So here this statement will not execute because this is also coming inside try block. Suppose if I keep it outside, then it will get printed. So these are some of the cases which you should know. Suppose if I do this somewhere here, right? Now this rest of the code will also get printed. Why? Because now this code is not inside the try block. This was not an exception. Originally also it is not an exception. But because it was inside the try block, it did not get executed. But here it will get executed. So you can see here it is printing rest of the code as well. Fine. So please make sure that this is one of the scenario. This is the first example which you have seen. Sorry, the first example we have already seen. This is the second example we have seen. The another example what we'll see is we can handle the exception using the parent class exception. So let's try to do this. So have a look at this. We have a main and then we have the try, we have the catch. Now have a look at here. Handling the exception by using exception class. We are not writing here arithmetic exception. Did I mention you that I have mentioned you that if suppose you do not know the name of this particular exception, if you do not know what kind of exception is it, then what you can do, you can just write that particular exception term here. Now please understand that this exception is a class and it's a father. I've already told you that, right? I've told you this is father. So basically this exception father class is having all the exceptions inside it, the checked one also, the unchecked one also. So if you write this, what this will do is this will internally find and search that which exception is it. Is it an arithmetic or is it a number format or is it an array index out of bound? It will do it automatically. So you don't have to worry about it. You can just directly use it. So this is what is called as a father exception class or a parent exception class. ठीक है. So अगर आपको नहीं पता है कि कौन सा exception अगर हो रहा है, then what you can do is you can directly write exception. ठीक है. This is something which is different from our previous codes. Now let's try to see a custom message. Suppose I don't want to print this particular message which is getting printed now. You can see here, if I just scroll, you can see this is the message which is getting printed. I have not printed this, but this E is getting printed here. So this E is the object of exception which is finding that it's an arithmetic exception, and then it is printing this message which is by default. By default, this is the error message which is getting printed. So suppose I want a custom message. I don't want to print this default message. I want a custom message. So what you can do is you can write a custom message as well. So for that, what you have to do? You can see this. So what are you writing here? You're writing catch exception E, but you're not using E. You are writing can't divide by 0. right? So if I run this, it will print me can't divide by 0. But is it giving me infinity? No, right? It's not giving me infinity. So it's not corrected. It's just handled. It's just giving me can't divide by 0. Suppose if I just write here or mention here a plus sign with E, right? You can see here, this E is printing me the default message then. So this is what is a custom message. You can also write a custom message. It's not always important to print the E. You can write a custom message as well. That means if this particular line is throwing exception, then what you want this to print, you can also do that. Fine. The next example is to resolve the exception in a catch block. So let's try to see this. So suppose there are two variables 50 and 0 and we are writing int data. Then we are writing data is equal to I by j. Now please understand, we do not know whether it will throw exception or not. We may or may not. It may or may not, right? So I by j, that means 50 by 0. So yes, it is throwing exception. So in that case, what am I doing? I'm writing a catch and I'm writing father of exception, which is exception, and then E. And then I'm resolving the exception in the catch block. What am I doing? I'm doing I divided by j plus 2. So j plus 2 is what? 0 plus 2, that means 2. 50 by 2 will be 25. So I'm going to get the answer, which is 25, as you can see here. Okay, this as well you can do. But again, understand this is not corrected. It's not corrected. I was expecting a value of infinity, but did infinity come? No, I just handled it. So please understand that every time whatever I am doing, I am not actually correcting it. I'm just handling it. Okay. Fine. This also you can do. The next one. So along with try block, we are going to write something else. As you can see here, what we are doing here is along with try block, we also enclose exception code in a catch block. So you can see here, we have a main method try block. There is an exception. We know that, but in catch block also we have an exception, and then we are printing the rest of the code, right? So we are not basically handling the error or exception here. Hi Tanuj, but if the data value is not corrected, then it also throw error sometimes. Yes, obviously, or otherwise whatever message you want to print, it will print that. तो वही मैं यहाँ पे कर रहा हूँ. See, that's what I'm doing here ना. See, I'm not calculating and correcting it. I'm not saying that I want to do it divided by 2. अरे keyboard. So I'm not saying that I'm divided by 2 here. I'm saying that, let's say in catch के code में भी, if I am doing the wrong thing, if I'm writing an exception code, then what happens? So have a look at it. See, it will not work. It will give you an error. Can you see here? It is giving me an exception in thread main. So it is giving me an error. Why am I saying an error? Because this is not getting printed. This thing is not getting printed. Can you see anywhere rest of the code? No, it is not. So this is wrong. You cannot do this. You cannot use catch block to have a exception. You cannot do that. Only try blocks will have all the exceptions. So what you can do in this code is you can put this up here. You can put this up here, and then you can try to print whatever you want to print in the catch block. So let's say I want to just print here the error message. So it will print that. Okay. And then the rest of the code is also getting printed. Fine. So I hope Tanuj, you got this. But why we not correct the data in the catch block? We can, there's no problem. That's what I have told you in the previous example. Now we can do that. There's no problem in that. Okay, let's try to see. So suppose यहाँ पे I'm doing 2. अरे यार. Suppose if I'm doing this, okay, and I'm printing the data 2. Okay, let's see what happens. Data 2। अगर आप ये भी कर रहे हो, इफ इवन इफ यू आर डूइंग दिस राइट, प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड कि कैच ब्लॉक का काम क्या है. कैच ब्लॉक वर्क इज टू एक्चुअली हैंडल द एक्सेप्शन. आर वी हैंडलिंग इट? आर वी प्रिंटिंग एनी पर्टिकुलर थिंग ऑन दिस पर्टिकुलर पार्ट? No, right? Let's have a look what happens. So have a look. 25 is getting printed and then rest of the code. This was the same example which I have seen in the, which I have shown you in the previous example. This was the same thing. It's just that वहां पे क्या हो रहा था, j+2 हो रहा था, I डिवाइड बाय j+2 हो रहा था. यहां भी मैं वही चीज कर रहा हूं, तो ये काम करेगा. We can do this. Okay, it's just that we are printing something which will give me an output, so it will work. But अगर आप यहीं पे एक और एक्सेप्शन डाल रहे हो तो वो चीज यहां पे नहीं चलेगी. एक्सेप्शन जो भी है वो एक्सेप्शन आपको ट्राई में ही डालना है. कैच में सिर्फ वो चीजें हैंडल होंगी. ठीक है, फाइन. सो कैन वी मूव अहेड? लेट्स ट्राई टू सी समथिंग एल्स. So in this example, we handle the generated exception, arithmetic exception with a different type of exception class. So let's try to do this. So what we are going to do here is, let's say कि मेरे पास एक arithmetic exception है. I have an arithmetic exception, but I was not knowing कि this was an arithmetic exception. I just wrote array index out of bound exception. I just wrote this particular kind of exception. So what's going to happen? Let's try to see. So if I print this, it will give me an error. So you can see it is throwing an error. So the error is because handling is not happening in a correct way, right? अब suppose आपको जो wound लगा है, let's say वो जो wound लगा है, the wound which you are getting after an accident or something, right? So suppose the bandage is just directly placed in your wound, तो क्या वो ठीक हो जाएगा? No, right? It won't be handled because bandage won't do anything. Bandage means the white one, the thin one. If you just bandage that in your wound, that's not gonna do anything, right? You have to apply cream, you have to apply some ointment, and then you have to apply the bandage so that the bleeding can be stopped, right? The same thing is happening here. We cannot just use the normal bandage. We have to use the correct method of stopping the bleeding. So that is nothing but here is arithmetic exception. That's not array index out of bound exception. This exception will be used when you're working with an array and where in that array you are having larger values or larger number of values than memory locations. Okay, so this will not work. This will give you an error. Let's try to see something else. So let's try to see an example of unchecked exception, which is handling another kind of unchecked exception. So let's try to see this. So have a look at here. So this is not an arithmetic exception. This is an array index out of bound exception. Just now I give you an example. So you have 4 particular values here, but you want to fetch ARR 10. How can we do this? This will surely throw an exception that will get handled here and it will give me a message. So have a look. The message will be something different. Can you see what is the message? Index 10 out of bound for length 4. This is not giving me divide by 0. No, right? This is giving me a different kind of messages. So these messages are basically internally written inside these classes. Inside these classes, these kind of messages are written, which is getting fetched automatically. Okay, so we don't have to do anything. We have to just create the object and use that object here. Again and again, I'm saying object. This is a reference variable because we have not used the new keyword and all of those things. It's basically a reference variable which we are using here. Okay, so I hope this makes sense. Let's try to see an example to handle checked exception. So this is an unchecked exception. Okay, this is an unchecked exception. हमने क्या पढ़ा था? Unchecked exception is not checked by compiler. These are happened by runtime. This has happened in runtime. So now we will see for our checked exception. एक example checked exception का. Let's try to see. Okay, so for this one, you need to understand first what is file handling. But I think you will understand what is happening here. Let's try to see this. So this is basically a program. I don't know if you can understand this or not. These errors are coming because I have not imported some of the things. I have to import some some of the packages and libraries I have to import, and then only we can use this. Okay. Fine. So now it should not give me any. So this is basically a file handling concept. I know you do not know that, so this is not important, but I'm just trying to explain you how this is an checked exception. So basically you can see what is happening. You will understand this code, don't worry about it. You can see here there is the file name jtp.txt, right? And we are thinking, or we are expecting an exception to be thrown here, because we know that this jtp.txt is not available in my system. This particular file is not available in my system, so we expect that this particular line can give me an exception. We are handling it, and file not found is an exception. File not found is a checked exception, which can be done in the compile time itself, right? So when the .java file, this .java file is converted into a .class file, in the same compile time, in that particular time itself, it will get to know that this particular statement is throwing an exception, and that is why it is called as an checked exception. So let's try to run this. We are directly running it. We are not compiling and doing anything. We are directly running it. So let's have a look. You can see file saved successfully. It says file saved successfully. Okay. Fine. So in checked exceptions, you are not getting a particular message. This file has been saved already. Okay. This is kind of an exception, which is a checked exception. We'll talk about this later when we'll cover file handling. At that time, we'll talk about print writer. We'll talk about this particular thing, java.io.printvwriter. Also how to read, how to write, how to open a file, how to close a file, how to delete a file. All those things we'll learn about in our file handling concept. I hope this makes sense right now. Let's move to another topic, which is multiple catch block, and let's try to understand how we can write a multiple catch and why is it required to have a multiple catch block. Right now we are only having one try and one catch. Let's try to see how do we do a code for multiple catch and why is it required. So basically, multiple catch block, you must have understood that we will have multiple catch blocks to handle multiple exceptions. It will not be the same case, right? It will not be that you will have only one exception in your one program, right? It can be like you have several exceptions in your program. So in that cases, what you have to do, you have to have multiple catch blocks. So in this case, you can see I do not know what kind of this exception is, so I have written different catch blocks. It's just like an if else condition, right? So if that condition is not true, go to the else if. And then if that is also not true, go to the another else if. If that is also not true, go to the another else if. If that is true, then print that. Same thing is there. It's just that they need to come to this and see if this is the exception or not. If this is not the exception, go to the next one. If this is not the exception, go to the next one. So similarly, it will go on, right? So please have a look at it and do tell me what will be the output of this. So we know that there are two exceptions. We have okay, I don't think this is an exception. This is not an exception, but this is, right? So obviously this will not get caught. This will also not get caught. Arithmetic exception is there. So we are going to get arithmetic exception occurs, right? And then also they are printing rest of the code. So why we not use inheritance of exception class for handling? Inheritance of exception class, that means throwable, because throwable is an interface. नॉर्मल क्लास का यूज करके जब आप काम कर सकते हो तो आप और काम को डिफिकल्ट क्यों बनाओगे? वाई यू वांट टू यूज अ थ्रोएबल इंटरफेस जिसका ना ऑब्जेक्ट बन सकता ना जिसके पास कोई इंफॉर्मेशन होता है, आप क्यों थ्रोएबल पे जाओगे? राइट, यू विल वर्क विथ क्लासेस, राइट? मल्टी थ्रेडिंग भी होगी क्या आगे? यस, आई थिंक टुमारो इज मल्टी थ्रेडिंग क्लास. आई एम नॉट श्योर, बट यस, इट इज देयर इन अपकमिंग सेशंस. सो मल्टी थ्रेडिंग विल ऑल्सो बी टॉट. ठीक है, तो yes, it is arithmetic exception and it will print the arithmetic exception occurs and also it will print rest of the code. So let's have a look. You can see it is doing that, right? Let's try to have a look at this particular example. So in this example, what we are doing is we are providing an array index bound exception. Let's see what happens. So have a look at here. We are writing int a equal to new content 5. This is an array, and then we are printing a10. So you know that this is an array index out of bound exception. It will go to arithmetic exception. It will see that it is not an arithmetic exception, so it will not go inside it. It will come here. It will see that, okay, yes, it is the correct one, so it will print this particular part. See that I'm not printing E, I'm printing my own custom designed message. So it's gonna print this and then rest of the code. Fine. I hope you got this. Now we are going to see one more example, another kind of case, and let's talk about that. I'm moving fast, I know, because these are very, very simple programs. I don't think there's any problem. That's why if suppose one program is coming where it is very hard, I'm going to take time and I'll go slowly. But some of the programs are very easy, so I'm just moving ahead. So there is one particular array, and then we have the arithmetic exception, and then we have the one more exception which is array index out of bound. So do you think कि यहाँ पे exception अगर हो गया है तो ये सिर्फ इस exception को print करेगा and then it will not print this particular thing, or what is it? Whether it will only print arithmetic exception occurs and then rest of the code, or whether it will print array index out of bound exception occurs and then rest of the code, or whether it will print both of them and then rest of the code. So let's have a look. So if you look at it, it is printing arithmetic exception occurs and then rest of the code. Why? Because in your try block, अगर उसके पास पहले एक exception आ गया है, right? So it's gonna go and handle that, right? See, आपके try block में चाहे कितना भी exception हो, अगर एक exception उसका handle हो जा रहा है, so it's handled. It is handled. Okay? It's just like, I know it's a silly example, but I am trying to give it. When you are wounded, right, you must be scratches in many places, right? You must be having scratches in many places. So what you're going to do? You're going to take care of that big wound, right? The small wounds, the small scratches, you'll not care about because उसमें ज़्यादा pain नहीं है. We don't have much more pain in that particular area, but the most biggest wound उसका हमें ध्यान रखना है. We have to make it bandaged or something, or we need to do something for that particular part, not that small scratches which we are getting, right? Same thing is happening here. सबसे पहला जो हमारा बड़ा exception आया है, if we handle that, then other exceptions are nothing. There is just printing arithmetic exception occurs and then the rest of the code. Okay, let's try to see another example. I hope there's no problem in this one. Hi Ankit. No problem. I think this content, I hope you're liking the content. I hope the explanation is very, very important here, not the programs, not the concept. Explanation of the concept is very, very beneficial. Okay, because examples you'll get it anywhere, as you can see, and explanation is something which you need to require, because many of the times people do go through the tutorials but they do not understand कि ये काम कैसे कर रहा, how is this happening, because इसमें सिर्फ course लिखा रहता है and nobody is trying to explain it. So that's what I'm doing. So basically here one particular string is taken which is having a null value and they are doing s.length, right? Now s.length will throw an exception. Why? Because the value is null. So obviously it's a null pointer exception, but let's try to find out. But ये वाला exception तो कहीं है ही नहीं. So what will happen now? What's gonna happen here? ये वाला exception ना यहाँ है ना यहाँ है. यहाँ पे basically एक father exception दिया हुआ है जो कि parent exception है, and I've told you if you do not remember the name of the exception, you can use directly the father exception, which is that's the exception class. So once I use this exception class will be taking me to my null pointer exception and it will print parent exception occurs and then it will print rest of the code. If you just have noticed here, can you see here what is written? Can you see that? Public class exception extends throwable, right? So I hope you understood. Now, So parent exception occurs and then rest of the code, this both will get printed. I hope you can see this. Fine. Let's move ahead. Let's try to see one more example. So we'll try to write a code in which order of the exception also matters. Let's try to see how the order of the exception does matter. Order of the exception means ये exception father exception यहाँ पे लिखना है या ऊपर लिखना है, कहाँ पे लिखना है. Let's try to see that. अभी तक हमने हर जगह नीचे लिखा था. Let's try to see. So suppose what I'm doing here is I have one array and I have an arithmetic exception, but firstly we are writing exception itself. हम लोग सबसे पहले father of the exception ही लिख दे रहे हैं. And then we are writing arithmetic exception. So these two lines are waste of time ना. These two lines are not even required because आपने जो father of exception लिख ही दिया है, तो फिर इन दोनों लाइन का लिखने का क्या फायदा है? Correct? So exception यहीं पे handle हो जाएगा. Correct? That's why it is giving me an error. So there's an order how you need to write the catch blocks. If you're writing a multiple catch block, you need to write the multiple catch block in such a manner that you write all the known exceptions first, and then the exceptions which you do not know, you don't write it. You just write the father exception at the last. But you cannot mention the father exception at the beginning. You cannot do this. Right? Now, this will not run, obviously, because this is not required. This is a total waste of coding lines. This is going to work, and now it's a very easy thing. So it will just give me a common task completed output with the rest of the code, as you can see. Fine. So let's move ahead. Let's try to see one more thing. We have understood about nested catch blocks. So let's try to understand nested try blocks. Can we have nested try blocks? Let's try to understand that. So using a try block inside another try block is permitted. Okay, it is called as nested try block. We can have a try block inside another try block. That means a nested try block, just how we do it nested if else or nested for loop. We can do that as well. So I'll just try to write a particular example of it so that you can understand how it is happening. So have a look at this one. So you can see here we have a main method, we have a try block, and inside the try block we have another try block, right? And this catch block is of this try block. Please understand that. ये try block का catch block यहाँ पे है. Try और catch हमेशा pair में रहेगा, right? So we need to make sure that these try is having its own catch block also. क्योंकि आप try में कुछ करते नहीं हो, आप try में सिर्फ exception बताते हो कि this statement may or may not be throwing an exception. You just do that in the try. That's why always your try and catch should be in a pair. So we are writing it in a pair. That's how it looks like. Okay. The another try block again, this also is inside this try, which is an outer try block. So again, the same thing, but this time also we need to catch it. So we are catching it. And then it is printing system.other statement. And जो outer वाला try था, उसका catch यहाँ पे लिखा है. Fine. So it's much more complicated because multiple catch block में बहुत easily हो जा रहा था चीजें. But here when you have several other kind of exceptions, like if you have this kind of exception in one line and then you have another line जिसमें आपको फिर से exception नजर आ रहा है, and then you have another line in which again you think that there's another exception. So in those cases you can try nested try block. So how to execute the program, let's try to understand. सबसे पहले मेन मेथड में ट्राई ब्लॉक के ये फर्स्ट वाले में आएगा. इट विल सी दैट ओके देयर इज एन एक्सेप्शन. सो व्हाट विल डू, इट विल प्रिंट दिस पर्टिकुलर मैसेज. सो लेट्स ट्राई टू सी व्हाट इज हैपनिंग. सो सबसे पहले गोइंग टू डिवाइड बाय 0. एज यू कैन सी पहले यहाँ पे प्रिंट हो रहा है, बाद में नहीं. आई हैव गिवन दिस एग्जाम्पल ऑल्सो. इफ सपोज यू आर राइटिंग int b equal to 39 by 0 and then you are doing the system.println, then this will not get printed because first exception has occurred, right? But in this case, what is happening? I am printing the statement first and then the exception is getting occurred, right? So that's why it is printing going to divide by 0 first, and then it is handling the exception, which is writing java.lang.arithmetic exception divide by 0. Then it comes to here and it's basically a 5 memory blocks of array. So 0 to 4. That means this will also throw an exception. So it is also throwing exception, array index out of bound. And later on it comes to here, it prints other statement and then it prints normal flow. Why is it not printing this one? Because ये वाला ट्राई ब्लॉक के अंदर जो भी एक्सेप्शंस थे मैंने सारे कंप्लीट कर चुके हैं. सो इट्स जस्ट गोइंग टू प्रिंट अदर स्टेटमेंट. अगर मान लो यहां पे कोई एक स्टेटमेंट होता जिसमें मैं लिखता एक एक्सेप्शन, तो वो एक्सेप्शन इस कैच से हैंडल होता. ठीक है. सो लेट्स से इफ आई एम राइटिंग हियर समथिंग, लेट्स से इस ब्लॉक के अंदर भी मैंने कुछ लिख दिया है, तो कीबोर्ड तो अलग प्रॉब्लम है. राइट, इफ आई हैव रिटन समथिंग लाइक दिस, करेक्ट. सो लेट्स ट्राई टू सी. अभी यहाँ पे अदर स्टेटमेंट इज गेटिंग प्रिंटेड एंड देन नॉर्मल फ्लो. सो बेसिकली दिस इज गेटिंग प्रिंटेड एंड देन नॉर्मल फ्लो. लेट्स ट्राई टू सी व्हाट इज हैपनिंग हियर. तो हियर यू कैन सी कि जैसे वहां पे एक्सेप्शन आया, राइट, इट गॉट टू नो दैट देयर इज एन एक्सेप्शन, इट डिड नॉट गो इनसाइड. क्योंकि यहाँ पे एक्सेप्शन आ गया ना, इट विल नॉट गो इनसाइड दिस. तो ये होल ट्राई कैच ब्लॉक विल नॉट गेट कवर्ड जस्ट बिकॉज father exception is written here and it's going to handle that. So it's just going to print handle the exception outer catch. Okay, but suppose वहां पे अगर exception नहीं होता in my outer try block, if there is no exception, then line by line these all things will also get checked one by one. चैनल बंद हो रहा है क्या? शुभम, there is no official news on this particular thing. But yes, it is getting paused after January. The content will be there, it will not get deleted. So I'm not sure whether the channel is getting closed or not. I'm not sure about that. You will get the official news in the channel itself later on. So let's try to see what happens. I hope this you have understood. So this is what is your nested try block. Any confusion in this? If no, then let's try to see one more example of it. सो हैव अ लुक. इसमें ट्राई कैच नेस्टेड में लिखा है बट इन अ वे दैट इट इज लुकिंग लाइक a staircase. So have a look what is happening. We have a try block which is an outer one. Inside that we again have a try block. Inside that we have again one try block. तो बेसिकली अगर ये ट्राई ब्लॉक यहाँ पे एरे लिख रहा है एंड इट इज थ्रोइंग एन एक्सेप्शन, इट विल बी हैविंग इट्स ओन कैच. सो इट इज हैविंग इट्स ओन कैच. बट एज यू कैन सी, this is the catch to handle the arithmetic exception. This is the catch to again handle the arithmetic exception. And this is the catch to handle the array index out of bound exception. Correct? And then we have the last one, which is the exception E5. So what do you think what is going to happen in this particular part? So have a look at it. Please understand कि ये try block basically इस try block के अंदर है, right? And this try block is inside this try block. So suppose if this exception is not here, obviously it will go to the next catch block. Obviously it will go to the next catch block and then it founds it. It founds the array index out of bound exception and then it's going to print that particular message. You can also see that यहाँ पे मैंने कुछ change कर दिया object को. So basically reference variable का नाम यहाँ पे change हो गया. You can change, you can take any name and that's what is getting printed. So basically it will print the array index out of bound वाला message. And with that, it will also print outer main. You can see here outer main try block. Can you see that? It's printing that outer main try block. यहाँ पे basically ln नहीं है. That's why it is putting up in the same line. If you put ln, it's gonna come in the next line. ठीक है? You can see here. Fine. So I hope there is no problem in this one. And अगर ये exception भी यहाँ पे नहीं होता, let's say if यहाँ पे भी arithmetic exception ही लिखा रहता, just like this, if arithmetic exception is also written here, then what will happen? It will go to the father of exception. It would have printed exception and handled in main try block. Okay, this is what it will execute if it was not written arithmetic exception here. Any doubts? Any doubts? Many examples we have seen, so please do let me know if you have any doubt. Otherwise, we'll move to our next part. So next one is finally block. So in finally block, basically what happens, finally block is such kind of block, exception ho ya na ho, finally block will get executed. So basically what you all think we have understood. We have understood about try block, we have understood about catch block, we have understood about multiple catch block, we have understood about multiple try block, we have understood about nested try block as well. Now we are in another block which is a finally block. So finally block is a block whether there is an exception or not, finally block will get executed. तो ये एक ऐसा block है जो हमेशा execute होगा, not depending on whether there is an exception or not. Okay, so let's try to do this. So here, have a look at this particular program. So you can see here there's a try block, int data equal to 25 by 5. There is no exception here, right? There's no exception here. This is not 0, this is 5. So there's no exception. Also, even if we write 0 here, then also the catch block is not having the correct exception name here. So it's nothing going to happen here, right? But can we see a finally block? So see, even if there is an exception or there is no exception, this block will get executed no matter what. So let's have a look what is happening in my output. So as you can see here, we are getting 5. Why 5? Because यहाँ पे exception नहीं हो रहा है, तो इसका output print होगा. It's printing 5 and then it is printing finally block is always executed and then it is printing rest of the code. Suppose if I do here 0 and I'm writing here arithmetic exception. ठीक है, now have a look what's gonna happen. यहाँ पे exception है, तो exception का message आएगा because we are printing the exception message. So it's printing the exception message. Still, finally block is getting executed. And then the Java rest of PHE code is also getting executed. Right? So finally block will get executed, never depending on whether an exception will occur or not occur. Let's try to see one more example of this. So when an exception is occurred, but it is not handled. So let's try to see how this will work. So when an exception occur, but not handled by the catch block. So an exception is occurring, but it is not handled by the catch block. So have a look. We have a try and we have written 25 by 0. We have written data, but we have not written here arithmetic exception. We have just written null pointer exception and we are printing the message. Finally block bhi hai or normal block bhi hai. So what's going to happen? Obviously, यहाँ पे exception occur नहीं होगा. So let's try to see what's going to happen. So you can see here, यहाँ पे एक error आ रहा है, right? Error आ रहा है, but error के पहले we are getting this particular as an output, which is just written before the exception. तो मैंने आपको बताया है before exception अगर कुछ भी आप print कर रहे हो तो वो print होगा. It's printing inside the try block. Also, it is printing finally block. So it's printing finally block is always executed and then the error is coming कि आपने exception को handle नहीं किया है, right? So finally block is such a block which will get executed whether the exception is getting handled or not. Also if the exception का correct exception is written or not. In any case, finally block will get executed. Hi Sasank, collection class होगा क्या sir? Yes, it will happen. I think 30th is the session. 30th को हमारा collection और map का class होगा. So we will cover that. Don't worry. Let's try to see. So I think already I have done this. So let's move to our next thing, which is our throw keyword. Now let's understand this part. Now we have come to this part. So let's try to understand what is try catch. Try block is used to enclose the code that might throw an exception. That might means may or may not be. We do not know. If we have any particular 1% chance that I think that this statement will throw an exception, I will put it inside the try block. Catch block is used to handle the exception. Okay? We have seen about finally also. The finally block is used for releasing the open resource. That means whatever we want to print, we can print it. We can release it. Now let's come to throw and throws. So this is two particular keyword which is used multiple times in your programs. And what is the difference between these two? Let's try to understand. So throw keyword is explicitly used to throw an exception. Throw keyword is used to explicitly throw an exception. That means आपको पता है कि वहां पे exception है and you just throw it away. Okay, so let's try to see कि इसका example क्या होगा. Let's try to understand that with an example. Any doubts still here? No? Fine, so let's have a look at throw. So have a look at this one. So here what I'm doing is I have a validate method in which int age is the parameter. If age is less than 18, throw new arithmetic exception. See, what am I doing here? I am basically saying that if the age is less than 18, then please throw this particular arithmetic exception and write this particular message, person is not eligible to vote. So what am I doing? I'm explicitly throwing it. I'm not using any try or catch. I'm just saying that I am very sure कि यहाँ पे exception है and I want to throw it. See, try catch block आप तब use करते हो जो आपको थोड़ा doubt होता है. You have a doubt that whether this statement will throw an exception or not, right? So that's where we use try and catch. That's why you keep that sentence inside the try block and then you handle it in the catch block. But in this case, I know, I'm very sure, I'm 100% sure कि यहाँ पे arithmetic exception throw होगा. So we are just throwing it. So you can directly explicitly throw it. That's what I'm doing using the throw keyword. So throw arithmetic exception if not eligible to vote. So यहाँ पे validate हम लोग क्या कर रहे हैं? 13 को कर रहे हैं. 13 is less than 18. So यहाँ पे ये चीज होगी pass, right? So it will print. You can see here what is it printing. Now have a look. So it says exception in thread, but it is printing person is not eligible to vote. It is printing, right? ये print कर रहा है. So this is one of the example of throw keyword. ठीक है, मतलब आप explicitly लिख सकते हो कि I am throwing this particular exception. Okay, by my own mean मैं ऐसा करना चाहता हूं. ठीक है, this is what is throw. So this was unchecked exception. Arithmetic exception was an unchecked exception. We can also throw the checked exception as well. Let's try to see one example of that, or we can try to see one example of other things as well. Okay, let's have a look at this one. I don't know अगर इसका main method लिखा है कि नहीं. Let's try to see. So okay, I'll just remove everything. This is the main method, main class. Okay, so have a look. We have a public static void main, and we have written here, where is my class ka? Okay, so this is also one of the important example. Have a look. Class main, void main, try block hai. It is throwing, that means it is directly throwing user defined exception. ठीक है, user defined exception means ऐसा exception जो basically this is a method which we have written. So here is a class which we have. This is not a predefined class. This is not an exception. Basically this is the class which we have created, user defined exception, which is extending exception. Okay, so here we are writing super str. That means it will go to our parent class. That means exception पे जाएगा. ये super क्या करता है, अपने parent class पे जाता है. parent class क्या है इस exception का? exception class है. exception class का कोड कहीं लिखा है? नहीं लिखा है. क्यों? क्योंकि exception class एक predefined class है. इसका प्रोग्राम जावा डेवलपर्स ने पहले ही इंटरनली लिख चुका है. So we are accepting an str value and we are throwing it to the exception, and then we are throwing a user defined exception here that this is a user defined exception and it will print the caught the exception. Basically आप जो भी print message कर रहे हो वो आप string message भेज नहीं रहे हो. You are not passing a string variable here, right? So if I run this, you're going to get caught the exception. Caught the exception is coming from here. You can see here because ये catch लिखा है मैंने. So you are using the catch which is handling the exception. So it is printing caught the exception and then this is user defined exception. Okay. थोड़ा बहुत tough example है. Nobody is gonna ask you this, but this is what is throw. Okay, this is what is throw. Let's try to understand what is throws. Let's try to understand what is throws. So whenever we use throw keyword, you can see here that throw keyword is directly getting used with one of the exception, right? In our earlier code also, we have explained you ki how we can write a throw example. You can see here, throw is directly getting used with our exception wala class. Yes or no? So throw keyword is directly used with our exception class. So we can directly explicitly mention ki I am throwing this particular exception, correct? But in throws keyword, what do? We use it with the method declaration. So जो भी method हम लोग declare करते हैं, उस method declaration के साथ हम लोग throws keyword attach करते हैं and we throw one exception there. ठीक है? So let's try to see this. Throw and throws is exactly the same thing. The only difference is throw keyword is explicitly used to throw an exception, but throws keyword is used to throw an exception and not handling it. So throw keyword अगर आप throw कर रहे हो तो आप उसको handle भी करोगे, क्योंकि throw keyword is used to throw an exception explicitly. That means आपको पता है कि वो exception वहां पे throw होगा, but you need to handle that, right? आपको पता है तो क्या हुआ, आपको पता है कि वहां पे exception है तो आप उसको handle करोगे ना. In all my examples I have handled it. यहाँ पे मैंने कैच ब्लॉक नहीं यूज किया था तो बेसिकली क्या हो रहा था, मेरे को एक एरर आ रहा था, राइट? मेरे को यहाँ पे एक एरर आ रहा था. यू कैन सी दैट यहाँ पे एक एरर आ रहा है, राइट? बट दिस इज गेटिंग प्रिंटेड. सो बेसिकली यहाँ पे मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ, हैंडल नहीं किया हूँ, इसीलिए एरर आ रहा है. बट अगर मैं कैच ब्लॉक लिखूंगा एंड इफ आई राइट द ट्राई ब्लॉक, पुट इट इनसाइड दैट, इट विल हैंडल इट. सेम थिंग आई डिड इन माई प्रीवियस कोड, जो मैंने ये लिखा था, राइट? यहां पे मैंने ट्राई कैच ब्लॉक लिखा है, थ्रो कीवर्ड मैंने थ्रो किया है एक एक्सेप्शन को और उसको मैं यहां पे हैंडल कर रहा हूं. यहां पे कोई एरर आया था? नो, बिकॉज आई एम हैंडलिंग इट. दैट्स व्हाई देयर इज नो एरर हियर. दिस इज डायरेक्टली प्रिंटिंग माई हैंडलिंग एक्सेप्शन. जो भी मैं मैसेज प्रिंट करना चाहता हूं वो प्रिंट हो रहा है, करेक्ट? सो थ्रो कीवर्ड इज ऑलवेज यूज्ड to explicitly throw an exception and it can be handled. But in throws keyword, it is also used to throw an exception, but it is not handled. So we do not need any catch block using throws. We do not use any catch block when we are using throws keyword. Let's try to see कि ये throws keyword का प्रोग्राम लिखते कैसे हैं. Let's have a look at this. So we have a class main and we are writing here a method which is throwing input output exception. Please have a look. मैंने आपको बोला था कि आप जब भी throws keyword यूज करते हो, throws not throw, okay? Throws keyword आप जब भी यूज करते हो, you are and you have to use it with the method declaration. So in a method declaration, I'm using throws keyword and I'm making sure कि ये एक exception throw कर रहा है. And you can see here that I'm using a throw keyword again. This throw keyword is used with the exception which is I'm doing explicitly. Again, there is one more method which is also throwing exception, which is an IO exception, and I've written M. Let's try to see what is there in main method. So main method में class का object बना हुआ है. Object name is obj and then obj.p. So obj.p will directly go where? Here. यहाँ पे ट्राई कैच ब्लॉक है. प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड, डू नॉट गेट कंफ्यूज. ये ट्राई कैच ब्लॉक यहाँ पे नहीं है, ओके? दिस इज नॉट हियर, दिस इज नॉट विथ थ्रोज. सो डू नॉट से दैट वी आर यूजिंग catch and we are handling it. No, we are not handling it in throws wala part. We are handling it in a p method. That's a different thing. So we are writing try n. So we think that n method, whenever you are calling, it can throw an exception. So this method will go here. This is throwing an exception, but it is also calling m method. So let's go there. And then we can say that it is also throwing an exception and it is printing a message device error. So let's try to see what it is printing me. So here you can see exception handled and normal flow. Why am I getting that? Because मुझे पता है कि ये पूरे journey में that means from P to N and from N to M and from M to catch block, we know that exception has been occurred. So it's printing exception handled first and then it comes back, it prints normal flow. Fine. So it gets printed exception handled and then normal flow. So this is what is the difference between throws and throw. Let's take one more example. So let's take one in which you can actually understand कि कैसे हो रहा है. So एक में हम लोग use करेंगे try catch and in other one we will not use the try catch. Okay, so let's try to do it in this manner. So अगर मान लो यहाँ पे we'll try to write a program. Which one? Confused in throws. We are doing that, don't worry. मैंने try catch use कर लिया था. Let's try to see this. Keep that out of mind. जो अभी मैंने example बताया, keep that out of mind. Let's try to understand this one. The previous one which I told you, we were using try catch. Here also we are using try catch. Okay, let's try to see ये कैसे काम कर रहा है. Because after this, we'll be using a program in which we will not use try catch. Okay, so let's try to see. Here you can see what is happening. Basically, we are writing throws, IO exception, and then we are using throw. Correct? Now please understand, पुराने वाले program में what I was doing, I was using throws and then I was also using throw. Right? मैंने आपको बोला कि if you are using throw keyword, so that means you are explicitly throwing an exception. When I'm throwing an exception, when I'm throwing explicitly an exception, I need to handle that. I told you, right? So basically, जब मैंने ये program लिखा, I am using throws. This throws is saying that IO exception is there. This throw is saying that IO exception is there, but it should get handled. ठीक है? Throws keyword का मतलब है कि it is throwing an IO exception, but it does not mean that you have to handle it. But when you're using throw keyword, आपको इसको handle करना पड़ेगा, and it has to have a catch block as well. So that's why this did not get printed. Basically जैसे ही इसको पता चला कि throw keyword use हुआ है, it directly moved to our catch block और उसने catch block में जो चीज प्रिंट किया था वो उसने प्रिंट कर दिया. नहीं समझ में आया? डोंट वरी, अंडरस्टैंड दिस. आपको याद है मैंने एक प्रोग्राम लिखा था जिसमें मैंने लिखा था 10/0, राइट? और अगर मैं 10/0 लिखता हूं, जैसे ही मैं लिखता हूं 10/0, एक्सेप्शन अगर होता है और उसके बाद जो भी system.println है, 10/0 के बाद जो भी system.out.println है वो प्रिंट नहीं होता था. वो प्रिंट नहीं होता था. जो भी कैच ब्लॉक में लिखा था वो प्रिंट हो जाता था. करेक्ट? रिमेंबर दैट? I used to put int I equal to 10/0 and then I used to put a system.out.println in the same try block. But whenever I execute that particular program, 10/0 will throw an exception. It will directly go to the catch block. वो system.out.println को मैसेज करेगा ही नहीं, वो सीधे कैच ब्लॉक में जाएगा और कैच ब्लॉक के मैसेज को प्रिंट करता है. राइट? आई हैव टोल्ड यू दैट. सेम थिंग इज हैपनिंग हियर. We are saying that there is an exception and we are throwing it. So if there is an exception, you have to handle it, right? तो ये इसको प्रिंट नहीं करेगा, ये जाएगा और कैच में जो चीज लिखा है उसको प्रिंट करेगा, क्योंकि this is the part where it is getting handled, right? So it will print this particular part. Okay? This is happening why? Because I've written throw. In throw, we have to handle the situation. In throws, we do not have to. So जब तक आपके कोड में थ्रो है, यू नीड टू हैंडल द सिचुएशन. सो अभी मैंने एक और प्रोग्राम लिखा, अभी मैंने ये प्रोग्राम लिखा. इसमें भी आई एम यूजिंग थ्रोज एंड आई एम ऑल्सो यूजिंग थ्रो, तो मुझे पता चलेगा कि यहाँ पे थ्रो वर्ड यूज हो रहा है। तो अगर एक्सेप्शन होगा, अगर ये एक्सेप्शन होगा तो इट शुड गो टू कैच, इट शुड गो टू कैच। लेट्स ट्राई टू सी। So you can see it is going to the catch. Exception handled, and then the last part, which is normal flow. Why? Because there's a throw keyword. So we need to handle it. अब एक कोड लिखते हैं जिसमें थ्रो कीवर्ड नहीं यूज करेंगे, ठीक है। सो व्हाट आई एम गोइंग टू डू हियर इज we'll take one code in which we'll not try to put any kind of throw keyword. That means अगर throw keyword नहीं होगा तो try catch भी नहीं होगा. Let's try to see that. I hope this is clear. I hope this code is clear. राइट, यहाँ पे बेसिकली मेथड बनाया गया और मेथड कॉल किया गया, एक्सेप्शन मिला तो एक्सेप्शन मिला तो उसको हैंडल करना पड़ेगा, तो हैंडल किया गया, ठीक, नॉर्मल है। लेट्स ट्राई टू सी दिस वन। यहाँ पे कहीं पे थ्रो कीवर्ड है? थ्रो कीवर्ड यहाँ पे अगर नहीं है तो कहीं भी हमने इसको हैंडल किया है? नो, राइट, बिकॉज एवरी टाइम वी आर थ्रोइंग इट एंड यू कैन सी व्हाट इज हैपनिंग, वी आर थ्रोज आईओ एक्सेप्शन, सो वी आर डायरेक्टली सेइंग कि आईओ एक्सेप्शन है, और मैं गारंटी के साथ बोल रहा हूँ कि यहाँ पे आईओ एक्सेप्शन है, बट यू डू नॉट हैव टू हैंडल इट। आप इसको डायरेक्टली प्रिंट करो, जो भी मैं प्रिंट कर रहा हूँ वो आप डायरेक्टली प्रिंट कर दो। सो मेन मेथड इज ऑल्सो यूजिंग थ्रोज कीवर्ड एंड इट इज सेइंग दैट दिस इज ऑल्सो गोइंग टू थ्रो अ आईओ एक्सेप्शन, एंड लेट मी जस्ट चेंज दिस टू मेन एंड लेट्स ट्राई टू सी कि इसका आउटपुट क्या आता है। प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड कि यहाँ पे मैंने कहीं भी थ्रो कीवर्ड नहीं लिखा है, इसलिए हैंडल नहीं हो रहा है। तो यहाँ पे देखो, यहाँ पे क्या प्रिंट हो रहा है, डिवाइस ऑपरेशन परफॉर्म। पिछले वाले कोड में ये चीज़ें कभी प्रिंट नहीं हो रही थी, ये चीज़ें कभी प्रिंट नहीं हो रही थी, हमेशा वो हैंडल में आ रहा था कैच वाले प्रोग्राम में, और वो वहाँ पे हैंडल हो रहा था। बट यहाँ पे ये चीज़ प्रिंट हो रही है एंड देन नॉर्मल फ्लो इज गेटिंग प्रिंटेड। वाई? बिकॉज आई एम डायरेक्टली सेइंग एंड आई एम हैंडलिंग इट by only this one keyword. I'm doing everything, I'm doing every concept of exception handling by only this one keyword, which is throws. So अभी आपको ना ट्राई लिखना पड़ रहा है, ना कैच लिखना पड़ रहा है, ना थ्रो लिखना पड़ रहा है, आप डायरेक्टली बस थ्रोज लिख रहे हो और आपका कोड बन जा रहा है, आपका कोड काम कर रहा है, ठीक है। तो इस थ्रोज का, थ्रो और थ्रो का मीनिंग एक है, थ्रो और थ्रोज का मीनिंग इतना ही है कि यू आर एक्सप्लिसिटली सेइंग दैट देयर इज एन एक्सेप्शन. The only difference between both of them is that when you're using throw, you need to handle it. So in throw, you are just saying कि there is an exception, but handling का काम आपको catch का use करके करना पड़ेगा. But when it comes to throws, you are saying that there is an exception and also it is getting handled automatically. I hope you got it. Now, any doubt in throw and throws? Sashank and Tanuj? ठीक है। सी, नॉर्मली इंटरव्यूज में भी आपको प्रोग्राम लिखने नहीं बोला जाएगा, इट विल जस्ट, दे विल जस्ट आस्क यू वन सिंपल क्वेश्चन, डिफरेंस बिटवीन थ्रो एंड थ्रोज, ओके। आपको बहुत सारे ट्यूटोरियल्स में मिल जाएगा, बट ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड इन अ हिंदी वे और इन योर ओन वर्ड वे, इन योर ओन लैंग्वेज, सो दैट आपको अच्छे समझ में आए कि बेसिकली होता क्या है थ्रो एंड थ्रोज में। इफ यू आर ओनली सेइंग दिस मच, दिस विल ऑल्सो वर्क, ओके। सो नाउ आई होप इट इज क्लियर। ये बहुत फेमस क्वेश्चन है एक्सेप्शन हैंडलिंग में, क्योंकि थ्रो एंड थ्रोज इज ओनली इन देयर इन जावा, पाइथन से इसको हटा दिया गया बिकॉज इट वाज कॉम्प्लिकेटिंग द थिंग्स। इट इज़ राइट, इट इज़ कॉम्प्लिकेटिंग द थिंग्स। थ्रो एंड थ्रोज का नीड क्या है? आपके पास ट्राई कैच है ना, ट्राई से करो, क्यों एक्स्ट्रा चीज़ें लानी है, क्यों और ज़्यादा इंप्लीमेंटेशन, क्यों उसको और कॉम्प्लिकेटेड बनाना है? सो पाइथन में ऐसा कुछ नहीं है। सो प्लीज़ अंडरस्टैंड दीज थिंग्स, क्योंकि जावा में ये सब चीज़ें हैं जो चीज़ें एक तरीके का अलग यूज केस देता है, एंड दिस आर द थिंग्स विच बिकम्स एन इंटरव्यू क्वेश्चन, राइट। तो यही सबसे क्वेश्चंस आती हैं और यही सबसे क्वेश्चंस पूछा जाता है आपसे। सो प्लीज मेक श्योर दैट यू नो व्हाट इज द डिफरेंस बिटवीन थ्रो एंड थ्रोज. So Java try block is used to enclose the code that might throw an exception. Java try block must be followed by either catch or finally block. We have seen that. You cannot write catch block first and then try. No, don't do that. You cannot do that. पहले आपको मेंशन करना पड़ेगा कि कौन सा ऐसा स्टेटमेंट है जो एक्सेप्शन दे रहा है, उसके बाद आप हैंडल करोगे. यू कैनॉट राइट द कैच ब्लॉक फर्स्ट एंड देन ट्राई. नो. यू कैनॉट राइट द फाइनली ब्लॉक फर्स्ट एंड देन ट्राई कैच. नो. ठीक है, फाइनली और कैच हमेशा ट्राई के बाद आएगा. जावा कैच ब्लॉक इज यूज्ड टू हैंडल द एक्सेप्शन एंड जावा कैच ब्लॉक मस्ट बी यूज्ड आफ्टर द ट्राई ब्लॉक ओनली. So this is how we do it, and I have already explained you this. Have a look at this particular example also. So you can see a num1 equal to 10, num2 equal to 10, and there's an array of 3 size. So system auto print num1 by num2, that means 10 by 10. Obviously there's no exception, so it's gonna print 1. And then system auto print array 6. This is what there is an exception. अब आप यहीं पे समझो ना, ये system dot out print num1 by num2 आप पहले कर रहे हो, इसीलिए 1 प्रिंट हो रहा है. अगर मान लो ये वाला स्टेटमेंट जो num1 by num2 वाला स्टेटमेंट अगर मैं array 6 के बाद लिखता तो कभी भी 1 प्रिंट नहीं होता. 1 प्रिंट हो ही नहीं पाता क्योंकि पहले वाले स्टेटमेंट में ही array 6 में ही आपको एक्सेप्शन मिल जाएगा. तो वो एक्सेप्शन ढूंढने लग जाएगा, वो उसको हैंडल करना चाहेगा, वो चाहेगा कि मैं पहले हैंडल कर लूँ, राइट. और फिर उसको कभी मौका नहीं मिलेगा वापस num1 by num2 में आने का. ठीक है, तो जो भी आपको चीज़ें प्रिंट करनी है जिसमें आपको लगता है कि एक्सेप्शन नहीं है, दैट यू पुट इट अबव, एंड द नेक्स्ट थिंग्स यू पुट इट डाउन, जिसमें आपको बहुत ज़्यादा शक है कि इसमें एक्सेप्शन अकर हो सकता है. ठीक है, तो वो क्या करेगा, पहले वो सारे आउटपुट्स प्रिंट कर देगा एंड देन इट विल एट लास्ट गो टू द एक्सेप्शन, इट विल हैंडल इट. तो यहाँ पे बेसिकली एरे इंडेक्स आउट ऑफ बाउंड एक्सेप्शन हो रहा है, सो इट्स गोना प्रिंट प्लीज एंटर अ प्रॉपर एरे इंडेक्स. ठीक है, आई होप यू गॉट दिस. I hope there is no problem also in this particular topic. Any doubts, please do let me know. कुछ questions मैं आपको दूंगा अभी. Let's try to see if you can answer that. Tanuj, Shashank, Somu if you're watching, and Ankita if you're watching, Manish if you're watching, Dhanu if you're watching. Please do tell me अगर आपको इसका यूज समझ में आया है कि नहीं. Yes, it is always better to use throws. See, throws came later on. पहले थ्रो ही आया था, उसके बाद थ्रोज आया, एंड वी आर द वन जिसको सब कुछ पढ़ना पड़ता है. कौन बाद में आया, कौन पहले आया, सब कुछ. सो येस, थ्रो इज ऑलवेज बेटर, बट अंडरस्टैंड कि इसका यूज़ क्या है, क्यों, क्योंकि क्वेश्चन में कुछ भी पूछ सकते हैं. इंटरव्यू में दे कैन आस्क एनी थिंग एंड यू हैव टू बी वेरी 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 क्लियर अबाउट इट, राइट. सो आई होप एवरीथिंग इज फाइन. सो कुछ क्वेश्चंस देते हैं कहीं कहीं से, एंड लेट्स ट्राई टू सी कि आपको उसका आउटपुट बनता है कि नहीं, राइट. सो लेट्स ट्राई टू सी दैट. अरे कीबोर्ड तो ओके. सो I'm not sure if you will be able to do this, but let's try. Public static void main static int. So this is my main method. Okay. Please have a look. So there's a main class which is having a static int method. Understand this is a static method, divide by 0, which is having two values a and b, and I equal to a by b, where is returning I. There's another method which is static int compute division. It is also having a and b, res equal to 0, that means the result is 0. And then they have try block where they are putting up res equal to divide by 0 a comma b. So a comma b is divide by 0 a comma b is basically a method call, which is obviously gonna come here and it will take the value of a and b as well. It will do all the result things and it will return I. So जो भी I का value return होगा वो res के अंदर आएगा. Am I very fast? I'll keep it slow. Have a look at this. यहाँ पे एक divide by 0 का method है जिसके पास दो हैं a और b. कुछ लॉजिक्स लिखा है यहाँ पे एक और मेथड है स्टैटिक इंट करके कंप्यूट डिवीजन, जिसके अंदर अगेन दो वैल्यूज हैं ए एंड बी. कहीं से पास होंगी ए और बी वैल्यू, वी डू नॉट नो कहाँ से अभी तक. एंड देन आर रिजल्ट करके एक वेरिएबल जिसका 0 है वैल्यू. तो डिवाइड बाई 0 ए कॉमा बी कॉल हो रहा है, तो ऑब्वियसली फ्रॉम हियर इट विल गो हियर एंड ए और बी का वैल्यू कुछ भी हो सकता है. इट विल टेक दैट, इट विल रिटर्न आई. सो आई रिटर्न होगा जो कि आर में आएगा. अब नहीं पता कि ये एक्सेप्शन थ्रो करेगा कि नहीं, डिपेंड करता है ए और बी का वैल्यू क्या है, राइट. ए और बी का वैल्यू मान लीजिए 10/0 है तो एक्सेप्शन थ्रो करेगा, नहीं तो नहीं करेगा. बट स्टिल वी हैव समथिंग एल्स. सो यहाँ पे एक कैच है, क्योंकि जहाँ पे ट्राई वहाँ पे एक कैच होना है. तो एक कैच है, वो एक्सेप्शन लिखा है नंबर फॉर्मेट एक्सेप्शन, और यहाँ पे एक मैसेज प्रिंट हो रहा है. तो ये नॉर्मल कस्टमाइज्ड मैसेज है जो कि प्रिंट हो रहा है, एंड दिस इज ऑल्सो रिटर्निंग आर दैट मीन्स जहां से भी ये कंप्यूट डिवीजन इज गेटिंग कॉल्ड, दिस विल ऑल्सो रिटर्न द रिजल्ट आउट ऑफ इट. इतना समझ में आया? लेट्स कम टू द मेन मेथड. So we have a value a equal to 1, we have a b value which is 0, and then we are writing try int I equal to compute division ab. Compute division ab means calling हो रहा है, so compute division 1 comma 0. So 1 comma 0 will come here, 1 will become a, b will become 0, and then these all things will happen. So please do let me know कि यहाँ पे क्या print होगा, whether it will come back here or whether it will come back here or what is it. Try to see everything, every possible things, because स्टैटिक इंट भी है और बहुत चीजें ऐसी हैं जो यहाँ पे कॉम्प्लेक्स सिचुएशन को बना रही है. तो प्लीज ट्राई टू सी एंड गिव मी द आउटपुट कि यहाँ पे प्रिंट क्या होगा. इससे पहले मैं ये बता दूं, इफ यू कैन सी हियर यहाँ पे कस्टमाइज्ड मैसेज प्रिंट हो रहा है, राइट. एंड यहाँ पे आप देख सकते हो ये जो चीज है ना, दिस गेट मैसेज इज अ प्री डिफाइंड मेथड ऑफ एक्सेप्शन. So ये get message is a predefined method of exception which will print divide by 0. Only it will only print divide by 0. Earlier क्या होता था? We used to get a different kind of output, right? We used to get something like this. I am not sure if I have printed that somewhere. Yeah, we used to get something like this. We used to get java.lang.arithmetic exception colon divide by 0, right? But जब आप डॉट गेट मैसेज मेथड लिखते हो, देन यू विल ओनली गेट अ मैसेज विच इज डिवाइड बाय 0. दैट्स इट, यू विल ओनली गेट दैट मच. ठीक है. सो नाउ प्लीज टेल मी व्हाट विल द आंसर. अपर ट्राई ब्लॉक देन लोअर ट्राई ब्लॉक. ठीक है. सो whether it will catch the whether it will handle the exception or not. एक्सेप्शन कौन सा हैंडल हो रहा है, नंबर फॉर्मेट या अर्थमेटिक, कौन सा? क्योंकि दो हैं. और इनफैक्ट व्हाट इज अ नंबर फॉर्मेट, पहले तो आप वो समझो. नंबर फॉर्मेट इज व्हाट? नंबर फॉर्मेट इज आप जब किसी स्ट्रिंग वैल्यू को डालते हो और उसको इंट में चेंज करते हो, राइट. बट डू वी हैव एनी काइंड ऑफ सिचुएशन लाइक दैट हियर? डू वी हैव एनी स्ट्रिंग वैल्यू? कहीं पे भी एनी स्ट्रिंग का कहीं डेटा टाइप लिखा है? कहीं पे भी नहीं, राइट. सो नंबर फॉर्मेट वाला तो आएगा ही नहीं इधर, क्योंकि एक्सेप्शन नंबर फॉर्मेट का है ही नहीं. एक्सेप्शन का नंबर फॉर्मेट है? एक्सेप्शन नंबर फॉर्मेट वाला है क्या? कहीं भी स्ट्रिंग दिख रहा है आपको? सब जगह इंट है. और अगर सब जगह इंट है, यहां भी इंट है, यहां भी इंट है, यहां भी इंट है, तो प्रॉब्लम कहाँ है? प्रॉब्लम कहीं नहीं है. लेट्स हैव अ लुक. सो बेसिकली यहां से पहले ये गया ऊपर, ये गया ऊपर इधर, एंड देन 1 and 0. सो ये फिर यहां से ऊपर गया इधर. ओके. एंड देन इट गॉट टू नो कि यहां पे एक्सेप्शन था, तो एक्सेप्शन वापस जाएगा. जो भी वैल्यू तो आया नहीं, वैल्यू तो आया ही नहीं, आया क्या चीज? आया एक्सेप्शन. सो रिटर्न क्या होगा? एक्सेप्शन ही रिटर्न होगा. एक्सेप्शन रिटर्न कहाँ होगा? यहाँ पे होगा. बट इट विल फाइंड दैट यहाँ पे मेरा तरीके का एक्सेप्शन नहीं है. मेरा एक्सेप्शन वॉज अर्थमेटिक. बट डू वी हैव अर्थमेटिक एक्सेप्शन? नो, वी डू नॉट हैव एनी अर्थमेटिक एक्सेप्शन, वी हैव नंबर फॉर्मेट. तो इट विल गो डाउन अगेन. क्यों डाउन जा रहा है? क्योंकि ये भी रिटर्न कर रहा है. जो हम यहां से रिटर्न किए थे वो कहां आया? आरईएस के अंदर. कोई वैल्यू नहीं था, वो इन्फिनिटी नहीं था, वो सिर्फ एक अर्थमेटिक एक्सेप्शन था जो यहां पे आ गया. उसको भी मैंने रिटर्न किया. कहां गया? आई में. फिर हम यहां पे लिख रहे हैं अपना अर्थमेटिक, तो यहां पे कैच होगा और वो गेट मैसेज वाला प्रिंट को प्रिंट करेगा. तो ये क्या प्रिंट करेगा? ये प्रिंट करेगा डिवाइड बाय 0. ठीक है. तो आपको ध्यान देना है बहुत अच्छे से कि कौन सा एक्सेप्शन अकर हो रहा है. आपको यहां पे कोई भी ऐसा एक्सेप्शन अकर होते दिख रहा है? देयर इज ओनली वन एक्सेप्शन व्हिच इज गेटिंग अकर, व्हिच इज दिस. एंड व्हाई आई ट्राई टू गिव यू दिस एग्जांपल? बिकॉज यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड कि अगर आप इसी पर्टिकुलर मेथड के अंदर ट्राई कैच ब्लॉक करके हैंडल नहीं कर रहे हो, इफ यू आर रिटर्निंग द वैल्यू, इट्स फाइन, इट विल रिटर्न द एक्सेप्शन. इट विल नॉट गिव एन एरर हियर. यहां पे प्रोग्राम एरर नहीं है. नॉर्मली पहले हम लोग क्या करते थे? वी यूज्ड टू पुट अप अ ट्राई कैच ब्लॉक हियर ओनली ना. सी, यहीं पे हम लोग ट्राई कैच ब्लॉक बना देते थे इसी मेथड के अंदर, सेम मेथड के अंदर. बट हम लोग यहाँ पे क्या कर रहे हैं? हम लोग उस पर्टिकुलर चीज को रिटर्न करते जा रहे हैं. पहले रिटर्न किया यहां से यहां, फिर रिटर्न किया यहां से यहां, और फिर मुझे पता चला कि यहां पे कैच हो रहा है, यहां पे हैंडल हो रहा है, तो वो ये प्रिंट करेगा. ठीक है, तो यही चीज़ का ध्यान रखना है. दिस इज हाउ द एमसीक्यू क्वेश्चन विल बी देयर. अगर कोई आपका पहला राउंड है जिसमें जावा एमसीक्यू क्वेश्चन या ऐसा कुछ है, तो ट्राई टू सी दी कोड वेरी केयरफुली कि यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है. सी पाइथन में उतना ध्यान नहीं देना पड़ता क्योंकि इट्स अ वेरी सिंपल लैंग्वेज, वेरी सिंपल सिंटैक्स. बट जब जावा में आप बात करते हो ना, जावा इज हैविंग अ वेरी कॉम्प्लेक्स सिंटैक्स. कर्ली ब्रैकेट्स का ध्यान रखना पड़ता है, स्टैटिक का ध्यान रखना पड़ता है, ऑब्जेक्ट्स का ध्यान रखना पड़ता है. ठीक है, सो प्लीज ट्राई टू सी दोज थिंग्स एंड देन ट्राई टू आंसर इट. एक और क्वेश्चन करते हैं, देन वी विल फिनिश दिस सेशन. ठीक है, सो ओके, इसको करते हैं. आई डोंट नो इफ यू कैन, इफ यू विल गेट कंफ्यूज और नॉट. लेट्स ट्राई टू सी, कुछ सीखने को मिलेगा. लेट्स ट्राई टू सी. So we have here a main class and we have the main method. We are writing check age 15. Check age 15 will go here. Age का नंबर हो जाएगा 15. 15 is less than 18. वही सेम प्रोग्राम है, बट यहाँ पे थ्रो कीवर्ड है. और मैंने आपको बोला था कि अगर थ्रो कीवर्ड रहेगा तो मुझे हैंडल करना है, राइट. बट यहाँ कहीं भी कैच ब्लॉक नहीं है. अब मुझे को प्लीज़ आंसर बताओ कि इसका आंसर क्या होगा. और आंसर एकदम सही होना चाहिए, क्योंकि मैं ये एग्जाम्पल एकदम सेम एग्जाम्पल दे चुका हूँ, बस नाम अलग है. तो प्लीज़ लेट मी नो इन द चैट कि यहाँ पे क्या एरर, क्या आउटपुट आएगा. ठीक है, प्लीज डू लेट मी नो दैट. हाई लूसीफर, इन टोटल हाउ मेनी वीडियोज आर प्लान फॉर कंप्लीट जावा ब्रो? प्लीज कंप्लीट जावा बिफोर क्लोजिंग दिस चैनल. येस, I will. That's what I'm doing. That's why I have ignored all the coding sessions, all the interview programs, क्योंकि आपको वो कहीं ना कहीं से मिल जाएगा. बट कॉन्सेप्ट्स क्लियर करना बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. वो कहीं भी नहीं मिल पाएगा. मिलेगा भी तो आप शायद वो वीडियो आपको नहीं पसंद आए, या फिर यू आर नॉट बीइंग एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड फ्रॉम दैट वीडियो. दैट्स व्हाई आई एम कवरिंग द कॉन्सेप्ट फर्स्ट, सो दैट एटलीस्ट द कॉन्सेप्ट विल बी क्लियर टू यू. एक्सेस डिनाइड, क्या ये एक्सेस डिनाइड? अच्छा, एक्सेस डिनाइड वाला मैसेज आएगा. एनीथिंग एल्स? एक्सेस डिनाइड आएगा. चलो, एक्सेस डिनाइड आएगा, दैट आई नो, बट कुछ और भी आएगा ना. आई हैव एक्सप्लेन दिस एग्जाम्पल यार, जस्ट 2 एग्जाम्पल्स बिफोर आई डिड दिस. हैंडल नहीं हो रहा है. थ्रो कीवर्ड जब भी यूज करते हैं तो हैंडल करना पड़ता है. वी नीड टू हैंडल इट, बट यहां पे कहीं भी हैंडल नहीं कर रहे हैं. तो क्या होता है जब आप कुछ चीज को हैंडल नहीं करते हो, तो क्या आता है? जब आप हैंडल नहीं करते हो तो क्या आता है? अरे कोई तो लिख दो. मनीष, लूसिफर, धानु, शशांक, तनुज. एरर, यस, एरर आता है. तो इफ आई रन दिस, यू विल फर्स्ट गेट द एरर, क्योंकि हैंडल नहीं हुआ ना एक्सेप्शन. एक्सेप्शन हैंडल ही कहाँ हुआ? एंड देन वी आर प्रिंटिंग एक्सेस डिनाइड. यू मस्ट बी एटलीस्ट राइट. सो ये है. ओके, प्लीज ये सब समझो, अभी अभी बताया था. प्लीज ट्राई टू गेट दिस राइट इट सेल्फ, नाउ इट सेल्फ. अगर आप सोचोगे कि नई वीडियो बाद में देख लेंगे, फिर यू आर बी गोइंग टू अंडरस्टैंड. अभी मैं सामने हूँ, यू कैन आस्क एनी क्वेश्चंस. एट दैट टाइम व्हेन यू विल स्टडी, दैट टाइम मे बी आई विल नॉट बी देयर. सो if you have any things, please do let me know. Let's try to give you one more question and then we'll finish this. Sir, is this channel going to get deleted? Not deleted, it will just get paused. Delete नहीं होगा. इतना मेहनत किया है यार, कैसे delete हो जाएगा? All the videos will be there, I guess. Not guess, मतलब है रहेगा. All the videos will be there. It will just be like, it will be paused. That means no more videos will come. Maybe later on ये फिर से restart होगा. I'm not sure about it. There's no official news. So don't just plan something. Maybe फिर से फरवरी को मैं कुछ और रिएक्ट जस्ट पढ़ा रहा हूँ, राइट. इट कैन बी हैपनिंग, सो डोंट वरी. मुझे कोई एग्जाम्पल नहीं मिला. सो आई होप यू अंडरस्टूड एवरीथिंग. आई होप आपको समझ में आ गया होगा. अच्छा, एक चीज़ और बता ही देते हैं. लेट्स ट्राई टू सी इफ आई कैन एक्सप्लेन यू दैट. Let's try to see this. So basically, whatever we have seen till now, right, those are nothing but my predefined, or we can say that is predefined exceptions, right? Have a look at this one. Have a look at this particular thing. So this is one example where we are having a user defined exception. That means we are writing our own exception. So basically there's a class. This is our own exception. Remember that user defined exception wala code, which was an user defined exception. So this is an user defined exception, which is extending exception class. So this is how you create an user defined exception. Okay, ये थोड़ा advanced topic है. Nobody will ask you this. Nobody will ask you to write a code on this, but you should know कि user defined exception भी होता है. So user defined exception is a kind of exception which you create on your own, which you try to create on your own. So we create this particular exception on our own, and then we try to validate it. So program is a little bit much bigger. You can understand this very easy. Same process होता है. It's just that arithmetic exception, array index out of bound exception, null pointer exception को नहीं use करके we use the user defined exception. Okay, so you can try this once. Let's give this as a homework for you, so that आप भी थोड़ा workout करो, आप भी थोड़ा देखो सीखो कि कैसे ये exception करा जाता है. Okay, so tomorrow I'm again coming back with one more session. Let me just see which one is it. One second guys. So my next session, which is tomorrow, is on multi-threading and Lambda expression. So I'll meet you tomorrow. Multi-threading concept, deadlock, daemon thread, all these things you'll understand. वहाँ पे भी बहुत अच्छा example I'll take. I have an example of multi-threading which is very very amazing. Lambda expression भी हम लोग देखेंगे कल. We'll try to see Lambda expression of functional interfaces. ठीक है? So these two topics we'll try to do, and we'll try to understand how this happens. So if we call a method like previous and we get exception and a catch block over arithmetic exception, then print main method का rest code or not. किस code का बात कर रहे हो आप? Which code are you talking about? So if we call a method like previous and we get an exception, and catch block arithmetic and then print main method rest code or not. Rest code वाला message print हमेशा होगा. I am not sure which one are you talking about. Let's go back. Are you talking about this one? No, ये तो मेरा invalid वाला था ना. Are you talking about this one? Oh no, you're talking about the rest code. अच्छा ये वाला. हाँ, so basically ये होगा print क्योंकि ये बाहर है ना, try और catch के बाहर है, so it will print rest of the code. I have question what the difference between handled and checked exception. See, handled and checked exception कुछ नहीं होता है. There are two types of exception, checked and unchecked. Handled exception is nothing. Handled exception means जो exception handle हो गया है. That is what is called as handled exception. So basically when you are handling the exception, it's called as exception handling. There are two types of exceptions, checked exception and unchecked. Checked is nothing but compile time में जो होता है, and unchecked is जो run time में check होता है. That's the only thing. जिसमें divide a by b है. जिसमें divide a by b है, इसमें भी नहीं था, इसमें है. Okay. So you are saying if you call a method like previous and we get exception, a catch block, so आप अगर यहाँ पे लिख रहे हो ना arithmetic exception, if you already have an arithmetic exception here, it will print this one. Okay, it will print this one. One second. आप इसको change करके देखो. Try to do that. Write an arithmetic exception here, and then try to execute this. You will get an exception. You will get this particular message. ओके, और ये रिटर्न भी होगा, ठीक है, और ये वाला नहीं होगा प्रिंट, क्योंकि आपने पहले ही उसको कैच कर लिया है। तो एक्सेप्शन बार बार हैंडल नहीं होता है, एक्सेप्शन बस एक बार हैंडल होता है, ठीक है। तो यहीं पे हैंडल हो जाएगा वो, यहाँ पे नहीं हो रहा था इसीलिए तो वो बैक गया ना। यहाँ पे अगर हैंडल हो जाएगा तो वो बैक जाके करेगा ही क्या, उसको काम नहीं है ना, एक्सेप्शन जो था वो तो हैंडल हो गया। तो दैट्स व्हाट द टाइम फॉर टुमारो यू विल गेट टू नो इन द टेलीग्राम चैनल, क्योंकि मुझे थोड़ा काम है शाम में, सो मे बी आई विल नॉट बी टेकिंग एट इवनिंग, मे बी एट मॉर्निंग 12 PM आई विल टेक वन सेशन, 12 PM को मे बी आई विल टेक मल्टी थ्रेडिंग, एंड नाइट आई विल टेक लैम्डा एक्सप्रेशन, ठीक है। सो दैट वन, या कूल। सो आई होप दिस सेशन रियली हेल्प यू, एंड किसी को भी अगर समझ में नहीं आ रहा है एक्सेप्शन हैंडलिंग, तो प्लीज टेल देम टू ज्वाइन दिस पर्टिकुलर थिंग, to see this particular live session, so that they can understand key how this particular exception handling works. Okay, so do join this Telegram channel, the link is in the given description, you can go ahead and click on it, and once you do it, you will get all the notifications about my upcoming live sessions, and when I'm coming with what topic, all these things. If you have any doubts on exceptions, please keep it with you, next जो class आएगा उसमें आप पूछ सकते हो, ठीक है। Also please do subscribe to the CodeBeyond channel, which is you can hit the notification bell so that you get the updated notifications in the YouTube app as well. Also, please do like and share so that more and more number of people will get to know about this free content. Yep, thank you. Runtime exceptions can be handled by a try-catch block. Runtime exceptions, that means your unchecked one. Yes, it can be. मैंने आपको दिखाया, राइट? चेक्ड वाला मैंने आपको दिखाया है। एक एग्जांपल मैंने आपको दिया था जिसमें मैंने आपको फाइल हैंडलिंग वाला दिखाया था, राइट? सो इन फाइल हैंडलिंग वाला कॉन्सेप्ट वेयर देयर वाज वन फाइल एंड आई वाज हैंडलिंग इट, जिसमें प्रिंट राइटर का प्रोग्राम था, सो उसमें भी हैंडल हो रहा था, करेक्ट? सो दैट्स व्हाट इज योर आंसर देयर। या थैंक यू मनीष, थैंक यू तनुज, देयर इज नो प्रॉब्लम तनुज, आपका अगर एग्जाम है यू कैन वॉच इट लेटर, देयर इज नो प्रॉब्लम। इफ यू वांट टू अटेंड द लाइव सेशन, लेट्स सी मैं कब आता हूँ, बट ऑल द बेस्ट फॉर योर एग्जाम एट लीस्ट, एंड यू कैन कम बैक एनी टाइम एंड वॉच द वीडियो विल बी देयर, सो डोंट वरी अबाउट दैट, ठीक है। थैंक यू सो मच गाइज, गुड नाइट, टेक केयर एंड बाय बाय।